Thank you everybody so much for joining us at this webinar about utilizing U.S. federal student loans at UCD. My name is Bridie Troy, and I work in the North America Global Center in Admissions and Financial Aid. I am joined by our recruitment manager, Chelsea Weaver. Chelsea, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chelsea Weaver. As Bridie said, I'm based in Seattle, also part of the North America team. And I will be here just kind of in the background, collating questions that you have in the Q&A. We'll ask the majority of the bigger questions like live in the last 15 minutes, but if they're quicker to answer, I'll be answering them in the Q&A while Bridie is presenting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're really excited to have you here. Great. Well, now funding is an incredibly important aspect of enrolling at UCD or really any university. And as the decision deadline is coming up soon, I'm sure it is a large factor in your decision to go abroad. We have students from all over the US joining us today, and I'll be talking about using US federal student loans for both undergraduate and graduate students. So the most important thing to note at the start of this whole process is your course eligible for federal aid? The majority of our courses or programs that are managed by UCD Global are eligible for federal aid. So these are our undergraduate programs, our bachelor's programs, as well as our graduate programs, such as our master's programs and our PhD programs. Additionally, veterinary medicine is eligible for financial aid. Now, the courses that are not eligible for financial aid are direct entry medicine, any courses that are online, maybe like you're taking them while you live in America, or graduate diplomas or higher diplomas. That is different than a master's degree. Additionally, programs where more than a quarter is taught at another institution or through an internship are not eligible for financial aid. This one caveat to this is that if you are part of the program that is jointly taught with Trinity College in Dublin, that is eligible for financial aid, but any other joint programs are not. If you do have questions about your specific program eligibility, please contact federal aid at ucd.ie and they will be able to clear that up for you. So as of today, I'm sure that most of you have completed the FAFSA at studentaid.gov. If you have not, do not panic. There is still time. When you submit the FAFSA, you must include UCD in your school list for us to receive your information from the U.S. Department of Education. If you have already submitted the FAFSA but did not include UCD, or if you're not sure if you included UCD, you can check this by logging into the FAFSA portal. If you have completed the FAFSA with UCD's school code, it's written here, G10188, then we will receive your federal information and draft you a personalized cost of attendance letter outlining how much you can borrow. Once you receive this COA letter, you can start the U.S. financial aid application on SysWeb, our student portal. This application is different than the FAFSA and must be completed for UCD to certify your loans. So even if you have completed the FAFSA, you still have another application that you have to complete on our portal. You will also need to complete master promissory notes, entrance counseling, and upload any additional documents needed. When you are sent your COA, you will also be sent our federal aid handbook with a list of all of these required documents, links on where to find them, and how to complete them. So we do really walk you through this. Your application on SysWeb and the supporting documents are due by July 15th in order for your loans to be certified in time for the first disbursement in September. So at UCD and really any university outside the US, students generally use the following types of US financial aid. There are subsidized loans, and these are only for undergraduate students. Unsubsidized loans, which can be borrowed by any level student, and Parent Plus or Graduate Plus loans that can be borrowed by students depending on their level, undergrad or graduate. Now, subsidized loans are available to undergraduate students with financial need, and with a subsidized loan, the U.S. Department of Education pays the interest on the loan while the student is in school and for the first 6 months after graduating. Unsubsidized loans are available to both undergraduate and graduate students, regardless of financial need. The student is responsible for paying the interest on this type of loan right away. If you choose to not pay the interest while you are in school, your interest will accrue or accumulate and be capitalized. That is, your interest will be, will be added to the principal amount of your loan for you to pay back upon graduation. Direct Plus loans are for eligible parents or graduate students and are generally borrowed after the student has maximized the amount of subsidized or unsubsidized loans that they can borrow. These are also federal student loans, so like the aforementioned loan types, the U.S. Department of Education is your lender. For undergraduate students, their parent would be the borrower of a PLUS loan, and the loan is in the parent's name. For graduate students, the student is the borrower, and the loan is in their own name. The maximum PLUS loan amount that a student can receive is the cost of attendance, which we will go over in a little bit, minus any other financial aid received, such as scholarships or alternate loans. Also, the parent or graduate student should not have an adverse credit history to take out a PLUS loan. A credit check will be conducted when you apply for this loan. If you do have an adverse credit history, you might still be eligible for a PLUS loan, but there will be additional requirements. And I recommend that you reach out to our federal aid office for more information if you think this applies to you. Everyone should be aware as well that international universities cannot participate in the U.S. Department of Education's grant programs. So you will not be able to obtain a federal Pell Grant to get your degree at an international school. This is not a UCD policy, but rather a Department of Education one. Now, these are the annual loan limits for each of the direct federal loans. As you can see, the subsidized loan limits increase each year. We recommend that a student maximizes their requests in subsidized and unsubsidized loans before borrowing PLUS loans, as subsidized and unsubsidized loans do have a lower interest rate. So as you can see here, there are different limits for dependent or independent students, and your dependency status is on your student aid report once you complete the FAFSA. Most undergraduate students are dependent students, except in cases of age, if they're above the age of 23, family estrangement, homelessness, and other unique cases. UCD can make a one-time change of a dependent student to an independent student, but we cannot reverse this change. If you think that your dependency status should be different than what is listed on your student aid report upon submitting the FAFSA, please reach out to the federal aid office to discuss your options. All graduate students are considered independent students, and you can see your loan limits in this bottom row. If you are a graduate student, your unsubsidized loan limits will be $20,500 for each year of your degree. If you are a graduate student who has previously taken out loans, you might want to check your lifetime loan limits to make sure that you are not reaching your maximum loan allowance. Great, so you've heard me discuss a cost of attendance a few times tonight. Now, the cost of attendance, or COA letter, as I've referred to it a couple times, is an important document that outlines how much a student can reasonably expect to need to borrow while completing a year of their studies. This includes tuition, room and board, travel, personal expenses, healthcare, etc., all of this. A student can borrow their federal loans up to the total cost of attendance. Now, UCD provides an exaggerated cost of attendance, meaning that the total number on your COA is not a recommended maximum budget for living in Dublin. As students are allowed to borrow up to the total COA, we like to provide a greater than average estimate for living in case a student needs to increase their loans throughout the year. We calculate your COA by taking your tuition and program fees as listed in your offer letter, adding in the estimated living expenses and essential costs, and then subtracting any scholarships or outside financial aid. If you are receiving a scholarship from UCD that is listed on your offer letter, then we will include this in your COA. If you are receiving a scholarship from another organization, you must let us know so that we can include it in your COA. Failure to report a scholarship can be seen as fraudulent by the U.S. Department of Education, so it's very important to keep us in the loop of any scholarships you receive. One very important aspect to note is that your COA will be listed in total euros, while the actual money you borrow will be paying back in is in dollars. Also, the COA includes the origination fee, which is attached to every loan, and UCD does not see any portion of this amount that goes to the government. So you will be paying back a higher amount than you receive. If you have already submitted your FAFSA, you should receive your COA sometime within the next month. If you have not yet submitted the FAFSA, I recommend completing that at studentaid.gov soon, making sure to include UCD's school code, and you will receive a COA within 5 to 6 weeks of submission. The Federal Aid Office will begin emailing COA letters next month, or this month, in the order in which the FAFSA was submitted. So I mentioned that we calculate your COA by combining all of these costs, but it is really important to note that we do use an exaggerated exchange rate. So for the exchange rate on your COA, where we list how much in dollars you can borrow translated into how many euros, we will be using an exchange rate of $1.19, when in reality, today the exchange rate is $1.14. And this is so that you have a little bit more wiggle room in how much you can borrow. As mentioned, this COA is an exaggerated cost of living but in Dublin, but we highly recommend that you discuss with your families a realistic budget for a year at UCD. A great site that I would recommend is Numbeo. This site allows you to see real prices for everyday things such as rent, groceries, transportation, and to compare them with your current city. I know when I was budgeting to live in Dublin, it was really helpful to see how much I would be spending on things compared to my then Chicago-based budget. The COA will include an estimate of weekly and monthly costs, but also one-off expenses such as flights, immigration fees, and health insurance. The COA will be higher for those on 3 trimester programs, such as graduate students, as they have to budget to live in Dublin for an entire year instead of 9 months like 2 semester students. As I mentioned, the COA does use a hypothetical exchange rate as a worst case scenario. We want students to be protected and to have the opportunity to increase or decrease their loans as exchange rates may fluctuate. Right now, we set the hypothetical exchange rate at €1 for $1.19. As I mentioned, in reality, it's €1 to $1.14. But by putting that exaggerated exchange rate, there is room in case the dollar does get weaker. Great. So I did mention that U.S. financial aid application on SysWeb. This is important to complete after you receive your COA. So to do this, you will have to log into the SysWeb application system. You all would have received your login information already. Complete the application and upload any required documents. You should do all of this before July 15th. Then when the federal aid office starts reviewing your application, you will see the statuses change. When you complete your application, it will say application submitted. When the federal aid office has completed reviewing your application and has approved it, you will see loan origination pending. Once your loan has been approved and certified, you will receive something called a loan detail letter. Now, this letter outlines how much you are borrowing in dollars, and it offers a timeline of when to expect your disbursements. You can use this letter at Irish Border Control to show that you have proof of funds and that you are paying tuition. Right now, for US students, you do have to show that you have access to €10,000 in living expenses, as well as you have to show that you have paid €6,000 in tuition. This letter will satisfy both of those requirements as long as you borrow more than €16,000. If you do need to increase or decrease your loan throughout the year, that is definitely possible. You just need to contact federalaid@ucd.ie. And then once you figure out how much you want to increase or decrease by, they will send you an updated loan detail letter. So the total amount that you request will be listed in dollars, with 50% of the dollar amount distributed in September and 50% distributed in January. If you are a graduate student in a 3 trimester program, then it will be 1/3 in September, 1/3 in January, and 1/3 in May. We cannot disperse this loan money any earlier than the first day of term or orientation. So if you have expenses such as rent that will be due before September, I recommend budgeting and preparing to pay out of pocket until the first disbursement. If you are living on campus, you cannot use your federal aid for the initial deposit to secure your room on campus. However, you can use your federal aid for that first month's rent. We send them a list of everybody using federal aid, and so they note that they can expect your payment a little bit later than everybody else. Now, you may notice that these disbursement schedules notes that the net loan that will be dispersed. This is the amount of money that you are receiving after the origination fee has been taken, so it is lower than your total gross loan amount. Now, this is a sample disbursement summary. If you look at the disbursement amount for September and January, you can see that the same amount in dollars was dispersed for each semester. at 50% of the total amount requested. So if this person borrowed $40,000 after the origination fee, that comes down to 38,740. Each semester, they are getting $19,370 dispersed to their account. However, because of the difference in exchange rates in September and January, the student received a slightly different amount in their account each semester. Because while you're borrowing the money in dollars, you're receiving it in euros. The U.S. Department of Education will send us 50% of your total loan amount for the first semester, or 33% on that 3-trimester course. And legally, we must distribute these loans in the following order. First, we pay 50% of your tuition. Then, if there's any funds remaining, we refund it to the student's Irish bank account. Students can open an Irish bank account in person in September. They will then upload their bank details to SysWeb, which is our student portal, to ensure that they receive their refund in a timely manner. We then send them any money left over after paying 50% of their tuition. We send that directly electronically to their bank account, so it is available right away for them to use. The U.S. Department of Education loans this money for living expenses and tuition in Dublin, which is why we recommend receiving it in your Dublin-based bank account. You can use an American bank account to receive your loan refund, but I really would not recommend it. The Department of Education sends us your loan amount in dollars, which we then convert to euros before refunding it to you. If you're having your money sent to an American bank account, then the bank converts these euros back to dollars. You're then dealing with an exchange rate twice, as well as international fees. You end up losing some money that way. So these are 2 examples of a student's fee account after receiving their first oh, sorry. One thing to note is that your entire tuition will be charged in September, but this is not due all at once. Every year we see people that see their total student payments account that shows 22,600 euro charged, only, 11,000 paid. That just shows that how much is due for the year. So after your first semester's tuition has been paid, you're still going to see that balance, and that's going to remain there until the second semester is paid off, or the third semester for graduate students. The entirety of your scholarship is applied in that first semester. I know a lot of people here have international student scholarships. So say you're getting 5,000 euro a year, that entire 5,000 is going into your account in that first semester. So you're going to get a much larger refund in that first semester than you will in the second semester. You will be responsible for paying your own accommodation fees on campus or off campus from your refund. We do not handle that transfer for you. We just pay your tuition and then refund the remaining amount to you, which you can then use to pay our residences team. Now, once you borrow these loans and you start at UCD, you do have to maintain your eligibility for federal loans. Biggest thing is that you have to maintain something called satisfactory academic progress. This involves graduating in within 150% of the published length of the program. So if you are on a 4-year program, you need to graduate within 6 years. Otherwise, you will lose that loan eligibility. And you also do have to maintain a minimum GPA of 2.0 out of 4.2 in order to keep taking out these loans. Once you graduate, I know right now you're just starting, so this might feel so long from now, but you will have to complete something called exit counseling. You will have a 6-month grace period after graduation before repayment begins. UCD actually has one of the highest employment rates in Europe, so this shouldn't be a problem for any of you. And then you can choose that repayment plan after you have graduated. So many of you have received scholarships, and all UCD scholarships to undergraduate students have been awarded at this time. So you can see if you have been awarded a scholarship by downloading a current version of your offer letter from your application account. Remember that scholarships are individual to each course. So if you have offers to multiple courses, check each offer letter individually. You may have received a higher scholarship to engineering than you did to, say, liberal arts and sciences. Our graduate level Global Excellence Scholarship results will be announced in mid to late May. I know that there's some graduate students on the call right now waiting to hear back about that. Additionally, the results of the Government of Ireland Scholarship, which is not managed by UCD, are typically announced in late May. all scholarship applications have application deadlines have passed. So if you haven't applied for a scholarship by now, there's no more UC Global ones available. If you do receive outside scholarships, though, as I mentioned, you are required by law to let us know about these, and we are happy to receive them on your behalf. So your scholarship provider can electronically wire the money to UCD or directly to you. They can also, if they'd prefer to be old school, they can mail a check to our student payments office, and then we will credit it to your account. If you need that address, you can always contact federal aid at ucd.ie. If your scholarship is awarded in dollars, it will be converted to euros on the day that the funds are received. So students can also use private loans at UCD. We don't recommend any specific providers, but in the past we have used companies such as Sallie Mae, Ernest Navient, or Global Management Systems. Now, the process for applying for private loans is actually a lot simpler than applying for federal loans. So you will apply for this loan at the loan provider's website. They will check your credit and make sure that you are approved for that. Then they will contact federal aid to confirm this loan request. You should contact us first because legally we cannot approve the loan until we hear from you. We would then certify your loan request and you would receive that disbursement at the start of each semester. I will say that private loans tend to have higher interest rates than federal loans. So if you are eligible for a federal loan, definitely use as much as you are eligible for there before you move to private loans. UCD has received students who pay via 529 plans in the past, but there's not too much that we can advise because they are all so unique. It is up to the plan provider to confirm whether UCD and other non-US universities is eligible for this plan. They usually want to know if the university is eligible for US federal student aid before they agree to send this money. And we are eligible. For those of you who haven't been listening, we are eligible to certify federal aid under the William D. Ford Direct Loans Program. So you could just provide their loan provider with that information. They will also likely ask you to provide these documents. So your offer letter, which you can download from Salesforce, your certificate of attendance, which you'll be able to receive after you register for classes in August or September, as well as a statement of fees, which will be available after you have started classes. So it's a different process depending on which plan provider you have, but if you contact federal aid at uc.ie, they're happy to walk you through this or to talk with your individual plan provider. Now, keep in mind that a student's on-campus residence fees are billed separately, so you might need to obtain a separate statement or bill from our residence division in order to extract that money from the 529 plan for those on-campus funds. So we are going to have a Q&A section, but I would like to start with addressing some of the most common questions that we receive. One of the main questions that we hear is this: I'm a parent, can UCD contact me instead of my student about their loans? Unfortunately, EU data privacy regulations prevent us from disclosing any personal information about a student's account with anybody other than that student. We always recommend that the student email us directly with any questions or concerns about their account, and they are free to CC you in these communications, at which point we would reply all. I do know that sometimes students get frustrated with this, especially with Parent Plus loans, in which case the loan is in their name. Legally, though, we still cannot communicate with you. We have to communicate with the student. This is not a UCD policy, it's an EU law. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but when is the SysFund US financial aid application due? It is July 15th. This is an important date. Write it down. The US financial aid application is open right now. You cannot complete the application until you receive your COA letter. Now, we were very delayed in receiving a lot of federal information this year because of delays with the US Department of Education. So our federal aid team has not sent out too many COA letters at this point through no fault of their own. So it is unlikely that you have already received a COA letter, but once you do receive that COA letter, you can start this application and submit it by July 15th. And finally, this last question. What if I want to change my loan request throughout the year? Yes, you are able to adjust your loan request throughout the year. I know a lot of people get worried when they're first submitting this application and making their loan request, thinking it's written in stone. It is not. If you reach the end of your first semester and realize that maybe you overestimated how much you would spend, you can always email our federal aid team to request a smaller loan in January. Likewise, if you have not already requested the maximum loan amount and you find that you do need more funds, then you can email us to increase your request up to the total cost of attendance. With that, I will say thank you all so much for tuning in today. Please reach out to us with any further questions. On the right, you'll see some great resources for learning more about federal aid. And on the left is the contact for our federal aid office as well as our North America office. Um,